See, that is because the model of private higher education in India is wrong. See, when you have private education abroad, there are huge funds which have already been given to them. Now, what Indian higher education has got wrong, and I entirely agree with you, whereas in schools you can find a lot of private schools which are better than government schools. It is very difficult to find one or two private universities which are better than government universities. And the reason is that private school, you can charge a student fee and still have a surplus after deducting your expenses. In higher education, you can't.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today it is an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce you all to this very particular session where we are going to know more about the opportunities in educational entrepreneurship. My name is Harsh and I'm going to moderate this session for all of you, wherein I'm going to introduce you all about the event and perhaps the person who is going to interact and address all of us. First of all, I request you to kindly acknowledge and welcome the presence of our esteemed guest, Professor MM Pant, who is here with us. I would like to request all the persons, those who are watching this session on YouTube, to kindly upload in the comment section and welcome the presence of our guest. Professor MM Pant is very aptly described by the title of a 2009 book, Comprising Letter of Richard P Feynman, as an example of perfectly acceptable deviation from the beaten track. From being acknowledged by the Feynman as his pen student to having his Ph.D. thesis approved by Nobel Laureate NF Mott, Professor Pant has been a Pro-Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi National Open University and faculty at IIT Kanpur, MLNR Engineering College and visiting faculty University of Western Ontario, Canada. Professor Pant is a founder of LMP Education Trust, an organization supporting new age learning. And I believe his profile has so many things, so many glories, which I won't be able to explain in next few minutes. But I'm pretty sure during this conversation, we are going to learn a lot from him. So first of all, sir, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us. We are
Thank
extremely
you.
very happy
Thank
to have
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's our pleasure. So, sir, moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is opportunities in educational entrepreneurship. The educational sector in India is growing swiftly with large private individuals collaborating with the government to develop this sector. The government is also considering many steps to enhance the quality of education in India. Parents are now willingly enrolling their children into a school for good education from primary level. So, sir, my first question to you is how do you see the opportunities in educational entrepreneurship?
Yes, Harsh. So it is actually most people don't realize that this is the time when education is going to completely transform and entrepreneurial education will become the mainstay. And as we go into the conversation, I will try to tell you that now the time has come for educational entrepreneur to break free of the government and try to do things which government is not doing. See, so far what they've been trying to do is to pitch into whatever the government is doing. Now it is time for them to, like a rocket, get out of the gravitational field of the government and do things which are required. And that is what my main messages is.
Indeed, sir, it's really a great message. And I think the viewers, those who are watching this session, they are surely going to recognize this opportunity. Sir, my second question to you is we have recently seen our government of India introduce new educational policy. Sir, my request to you is could you please tell how do you see this new educational policy and how do you see how will it change the future of Indian education system?
Unfortunately, the new education policy has nothing new about it. It is the old policy with some minor changes, and this is exactly my point. My point is, and you all know it, that we are living in times which are very different. So let me begin with a few stories. Uh, Albert Einstein was a professor at the Institute of Advanced Study in Princeton in New Jersey. And one year, this is now more than 100 years ago, so there were no computers, no photocopiers. So he wrote his question paper by hand, gave it to his teaching assistant to have it typed out, and then distribute it to the students and to collect it, etc. And the teaching assistant saw this question paper and he said, "But Professor, these are exactly the same questions you gave to the same people last year. How can you do that? How can you repeat the whole question paper?" And Einstein is said to have said, "You are right, the questions are the same, but the answers are different." What I'm trying to tell is that education now is at that point where the questions are still the same. What do we teach? How do we teach? Where do we teach? How do we assess? Are we preparing them for the future which is coming, etc.? But the answers have completely changed. Now, in the case of Einstein, this happened because around that year is 1905, Einstein produced four important theories. One was the theory of special relativity, one was the theory of general relativity, one was the theory of Brownian movement, one was photoelectric effect. And apart from what Einstein was doing, the rest of the world also, with Max Born, Max Planck, and so on and so forth, Heisenberg, were all rewriting or re-establishing what physics was. And a 300-year-old model, which has been developed by Newton and Maxwell, etc., was being transformed. I am trying to say the same thing, that we are at a point where the hundreds of year old model of education, from Wood's Dispatch to Macaulay to Mahatma Gandhi's Bunyadi Shiksha to Kothari Commission, 286 policy and 2020 policy, are all about a past which is gone. We are now talking today of a new world which is being driven by artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, quantum biology, and so many other things. Even if you look at the technologies that are being talked about today, now this is a household word: artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, 3D printing, 5G, augmented reality, virtual reality. New education policy has no idea of all this. It is mentioning it, but this is part of the new education, has not been even accepted by it or assumed by it. And this is the main thing. And this is where opportunities for educational entrepreneurs are coming. Opportunities come when there are things to be done which the government or the existing system is not doing. This is where all the innovation that you've seen in the recent times, all great companies, they did things which had to be done, but others were not doing it. Others mean government and other private whatever. So this is the big thing that I want to say. See, the interesting part is that if you look at Benjamin Franklin had a statement called "an investment in education gives the best returns." Amitabh Bachchan in many of his things have talked about the importance of education, and he said after food, clothing, shelter, education is most important. He would say हमारे बाबूजी हमको कहते थे कि पढ़ना चाहिए और ये सबसे अच्छा वो देता है. Eric Hanushek, a professor of Stanford University, has a book which came out a few years ago called The Knowledge Capital of Nations, where he tried to say that if people are more educated, they prosper, the nation prospers. And actually, to a large extent, our mission that GER must become 50% was driven by this fact that in modern developing economies, most people are well educated and have seen higher education. So there is no doubt that the right education gives a lot of value. And we have seen this in our own past. I mean, if you look at, I like to draw this example because I'm part of that IIT system. I have a Ph.D. from Roorkee, which is now an IIT. I taught in IIT Kanpur for about 10 years as a member board of management of IIT Delhi for 6 years. Now, look at it. When IITs came, or IITs were created, there was engineering education already there. Gandhi College of Engineering is probably the oldest in India. Banaras Engineering College was there. Roorkee Thompson College was there. There were about 12, 15 engineering colleges in India when the IITs came. But the IITs transformed engineering education. And there are many aspects of it, but what I'm trying to say, this is the time now for transformation of education, and the entrepreneurs must be aware that they should not be limited by UGC, AICT, NCT, etc. They should go and say what people need. Now, we mentioned this thing, and I'm saying this with some seriousness because somewhere I was talking about the new things that are happening. And somebody said, so sir, ye syllabus mein kab aayega? I said, you don't have to wait till it comes in the syllabus. You start learning it. And this is where the private sector will have a great. So far, the private initiative was to supplement. So IIT entrance exam, we will help you prepare for it. CBSE board exam, we will give you tuition through Baiju. But now you're saying we will teach you what the rest of the institution is not teaching you, what you need to know. See, you have seen for 5 years, World Economic Forum has listed a list of 10 skills which are called success skills for the future. Complex problem solving, critical thinking, creative thinking, people management, service orientation, cognitive flexibility, negotiation, some 10 skills they have listed. And others have talked about, like Elon Musk has talked about first principles as a skill. Janet Wing had talked about computational thinking as a skill. How and where will you learn all this? The good news is that the COVID has made now learning through the internet an acceptable thing. Earlier, 2 years ago, the resistance was if you teach anything through the web, they said, no, this is not teaching. Now it has been accepted by the government through the MOOCs, through this, through online courses, approval of online courses. Online is a perfect way of studying. So if online is a perfect way of studying, why limit to what the UGC has? Let them do what they're doing. But what needs to be done, but they are not doing, is what has to be done. So this to me is the key message. And you can go around so many things. And also it can become a matter of personal choice. So whatever you want to do, you pick up that kind of a thing. So today, for example, you know about Netflix. So imagine a Netflix of education. Imagine that all kinds of lectures that are possible have all been put into a Netflix kind of thing. You give a monthly subscription and you see whatever you want. And similarly, there can be people who will give you test and certification. Test certification doesn't have to be by CBSE. There are so many agencies which can get created and they give you good test that you know that. As you know, in the IT sector, you have Microsoft certification, Cisco certification, Oracle certification, so many things. So anybody can set up and certify that you know this. So this is where the opportunity is there and the numbers are so large. You see, the World Economic Forum in 2021 said 1 billion people over the world have to be re-skilled and re-educated. Now, there is no point in saying this is needed, but I will have only 40 seats. This is required, but there will be only 100 seats. Now, today, entrepreneurs can create systems where people can learn. And not only that, certification also changes to something which will be like digital badges. You get badges for whatever you're doing and move on. And if you want it even more high-tech, you can use blockchain for certifying it. So blockchain for Bitcoin is illegal, but you can always have blockchain for certifying academic credentials. So it's an amazing time, and entrepreneurs have to just do it, and we'll go along. But one thing, there's an opportunity for solo entrepreneurs as well as for big-time investors. Big-time investors will transform the landscape, and solo entrepreneurs will start doing whatever they would like to do. Yeah.
Indeed, sir. I think you have given a very detailed overview, and I think the viewers, those who are watching this session, they were surely going to understand this. And not only I think, but I do strongly believe this. And the thing is that we need to understand that the World Wide Web is not the future anymore; it's present. Sir, my next question to you is: we have recently, or say, because of this pandemic, we have seen, as you have mentioned, this online education system has emerged during this pandemic. Sir, my question to you is: future of edutech, what India's education system can learn from e-learning?
See, it can learn that it must adopt it fast. It has already wasted a time in trying to ban the mobile from the classroom, ban the mobile from the college. It is time to adopt mobile. And if you recall, Google company at one time had its mission as mobile first. Now I have said mobile first and AI also. So the answer to India's education problem is mobile intelligent learning, which means mobile at the front end, and you understand today's nomenclature, AI at the back end. So that is what will be the future. Today, we will have mobile at the front end, humans at the back end, assisted with little bit of AI. As it develops, there will be more and more AI and less humans. So whatever AI can do for humans, it will be there. So in a sense, this is what we are saying. So we are saying front end is the mobile phone, back end is the human teacher. The human teacher is being supported by AI, and more work it will give to the AI, and human teacher will do only the more important work. The advantage of this is this leads to democratization. It leads to much faster access. And yesterday, in fact, to Parliament, they said that 61% or so of rural population has access to smartphone, right? Now, if that is so, you don't have to make buildings, you don't have to worry about this, you don't have to make shauchalaya for the school. Let them use the shauchalaya at home. And the point here is also one thing which is people sometimes forget. They saw things as learning at school or learning at home. Actually, the key beautiful thing is that it is actually learning from anywhere. Learning from home is a special case of learning from anywhere. Now you see what kind of a system you've created. You've created a system where people can be learning anytime. They don't have to give up. So they can be lifelong learners, continuous learners, all kinds of time. And therefore, it's an amazing system that is going to be and it will be done by private entrepreneurship because everything is ready for it. They're already in this game. They're already doing that. Somehow, they have been blinkered to thinking only we must do CBSE or IIT, JEE or NEET. You can teach everything else also. And this is what they should say. So basically what you're going to say is that we will have a new kind of thing, I would almost say like a new religion, that all young people want to learn all the time. And the beauty is that they will see the benefits of this learning because they will be financially rewarded. So you don't have to have 16 years of schooling and degree before you start getting financially rewarded. You get financially rewarded as soon as you have a useful skill, and you can continue to improve your thing. So I have this famous thing about competence and comprehension. So I may be able to do things, may not fully understand how it works. I will do that later on. And therefore, already, for example, even India with the SWAYAM and MOOCs has made a progress towards online learning and so on. So it makes a very good model that you start learning, and this whole idea of becoming Atmanirbhar, you become Atmanirbhar at 18. You learn something. You can learn about making movies, about scripts, about doing these shows, making apps, all kinds of things are there. And then continue to get your foundation built by getting a degree in due course through online or whatever. So it looks to me like a really very exciting time is coming. Stephen Covey has this phrase called win-win situation. This is literally coming to be a win-win situation for people. They can get educated, they can learn, they don't have to take the risk. What will happen after 4 years of education? Will I get a thing or not? No. You keep on learning, you keep on earning, you keep on seeing the world, and so on. So it's a very interesting kind of a time that is happening.
Indeed, sir. Again, it was a quite insightful answer from your side, and I must say it's hard to disagree with that. Learn from anywhere will be the future of education. Sir, my next question to you is, or let me first tell my viewers that sir is also the founder of LMP Education Trust. Sir, I'm sure you have faced or tackled this question more than 500 times. But sir, may I request you to could you please tell our viewers what actually LMP Education Trust is all about?
See, it is not a big trust. It is with my financial thing, but the point is there are certain things which I feel should be done, but others are not doing it, so I decide to do it with my trust. For example, one of my ideas is that learning happens in a community. So I have created some learning communities which I'm nurturing for last several years, where we used to meet in person also till the COVID came. So we would meet once a month or so and have some discussion, then weekly discussion. Today I run those communities as virtual communities. And that's called Learning 321, which is learning in the third decade of the 21st century. So this is actually founded on something very interesting. We are made to believe that learning will happen either in a school or a college or a university or by you or tutor or whatever. But social learning is a very important part. See, the point we don't understand is that social learning is more powerful than classroom learning. And unfortunately, when the social media came, instead of adopting it as a learning tool, we decried it and kind of banned it, criticized it, we make fun. Even the WhatsApp university is saying this, etc., etc. No, it is a very important thing, and I can, if you bear with me, I will prove it to you mathematically. So suppose I am good in teaching to one person only, one-on-one. Then if more people come in, the quality of teaching will deteriorate as 1 upon n. If n people have come and I am happy with teaching 1-to-1, then I get 1 upon n. And that is why people talk about small classes, etc. I say only 20 to a class, 40 to a class, etc. Suppose I don't care who is listening to me. I say Mitra and I can speak to millions of people. So N is not important. And Baba Ramdev teaches yoga to millions of people, other people propagate to millions. But suppose my model itself is that I'm teaching to a group of co-learners. Now, if my model itself is social learning, then if I have N people, then I have N into N minus 1 upon 2 combinations of their conversations. For just in pairs. If you go into 3, N into N minus 1 into N minus 2 upon 6, now you see it is N square, N cube. That means if I have 20 students in my class instead of 10, I have 4 times more conversation happening, interaction happening. So if I consider people my fellow learners, and I say this very often that I am teaching in IIT Kanpur. I am myself bright and there are number of bright people before me, but I'm saying for 1 hour, fingers on your lips and just listen to me. It's so stupid. If they were talking to me, engaging with me, interacting with me and with each other, the learning would have been far more effective. And we know this. This is what we know in real life, that it happens. The point is we need to manage it and sustain it. And I want to share with you something which you might not be knowing. Now, there's a very famous lady economist who got, in fact, first woman to get a Nobel Prize in economics was Elinor Ostrom. She was then a professor at Bloomington University, Indiana. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago. But she got a Nobel Prize for saying that many things, especially which are held in commons, are best done by the community rather than by the government or the private sector. And this was actually contrary to the almost axiomatic dogma belief, where that if something was held in commons, it will be good. So that was a paper by Garrett Hardin. So we have generally believed that if nobody is looking after it, then it will go into despair, whatever, sort of, it will wither away. But she showed by a lot of studies, and you don't get a Nobel Prize just like that, and you are not the first woman to get a Nobel Prize just like that, where she said if the community participates intelligently, that the community is better than the government and the private sector. And interestingly, therefore, nobody talks about her work. She was visiting India. I went to attend her session. Nobody meaningful from government had come because you don't want to tell people that you can do better than the government. Which government will tell people that you can do better than the government? So no important. At that time, I think Jairam Ramesh used to be Minister of Tribal Affairs, etc. He was there, somebody, and just about 50, 60 people. I have more people attending my lectures than people came to listen to Elinor Ostrom. But the point is very important. And so much so that earlier the theory was called tragedy of the commons. That if there is no authority managing it, then it won't work. Finally, Garrett Hardin changed his position to say tragedy of the unmanaged commons. So if you have principles as to how to manage something held in a community, it will happen. So the point is, you take principles for running a good community, and you know there are many good communities. Sports community is there. Look at the scientific community. Look at many other communities. They work. NASCOM is a very good community of organization. So the point that I'm trying to make is that if we have education and community, and this will make a big difference, because then everything will be relevant to it, supportive. They will see its usefulness, and they will get all the support that needs to get. Education by authority is not a good idea. In fact, all of us, even if you've got a degree, at the time of the degree, what happened? The Vice Chancellor says, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Vice Chancellor of the university, I confer upon you the degree of this, and charge you to be worthy of the same. And one clerk from the UGC will write something, authority of Vice Chancellor is gone. Any undersecretary from MHRD writes something, Vice Chancellor, authority gone. They got the JNU Vice Chancellor, just no, Delhi University Vice Chancellor out just like that. So the whole idea, it should not be an authority. In today's time, it should be on data. You and I have spent 4 years together in this campus. We argued, we debated, we had different perspectives. And now you are a mature university graduate. Instead of saying that, we say authority, some exams, some this, some that, and so on. So true measure of learning will be a community-based learning, and it will then give value to the community also. It won't be isolated from it. Yeah.
Very meaningful, sir. I think you have very deeply focused on the community-based learning and importance of AI and importance of blockchain application on the new education or education system, and what is its importance and how it can be implemented. Sir, my next question to you is, what is that one thing which makes you sad in Indian education system?
No, there is no one thing which makes me sad. The whole thing makes me sad. So I don't worry about it. And so my approach is, somebody who comes to me, I will give them good advice, give them suggestions, make them future ready, and so on. But as far as the whole education system, unfortunately, I know it very deeply. So the problem is, there is no hope from the education system. See, individuals, so I have always said that the advantage of India is we have such a large population, and a large population, young population. You know that intelligence is statistically distributed. So even if 4% or 5% people are very bright, that is more than the population of children in Europe or whatever. So this is why there is hope for India. But you imagine that everybody else's standard was also raised. How much more would it become? That is the basic idea. So what Eric Hanushek said, that so in statistical terms, if the mean and mode of the population's ability is educationally, and that is why the GR of 50% is a very good objective. But it has to be quality education.
Indeed, sir. Sir, my next question to you is, why are many private higher education institutions in India unable to produce quality results?
See, that is because the model of private higher education in India is wrong. See, when you have private education abroad, there is huge funds which have already been given to them. Now, what Indian higher education has got wrong, and I entirely agree with you, whereas in schools, you can find a lot of private schools which are better than government schools. It is very difficult to find 1 or 2 private universities which are better than government universities. And the reason is that private school, you can charge a student fee and still have a surplus after deducting your expenses. In higher education, you can't. Higher education is very expensive on resources. So you cannot get the fee to meet all the costs and give a surplus. That just cannot happen. The broad thing that happens, so in private universities abroad, they have a lot of corpus, a lot of funds, and they also work like businesses. They make a lot of earnings also. So typically, if you want a private university to succeed, it should aim to get 1/3 from the tuition fee, 1/3 from interest from corpus that it already has, and 1/3 from commercial activities that it undertakes. But somehow Indian notion is that there should not be any commercialization of education. If there is no commercialization of education, how will the money come? Somebody has to give, right? So it is not possible to do this in large numbers. You may have a couple of people who can give money and not worry about what is happening. They've just given to the cause of education. But for something to be sustainable, there has to be an economic activity. So the government design itself is kind of faulty, and by saying not-for-profit education. So either they will say that you will reduce the quality so much. See, higher education requires a lot of investment. I mentioned to you today, if you want a higher education, you have to have an AI lab. You have to have a quantum computing lab. You have to have an IoT lab. You have to have this, that. Now you say meet this from the tuition fee of the student. This is impossible. So there is absolutely no question. In fact, I have a story which I can share. This is on the humorous side, and I will put in a bit of Hindi also. So when I joined IIT Kanpur, 1970 or so, there was a story going around that one of this faculty, most faculty in IIT Kanpur had come from US. So one professor has come from US. There was, at that time, there was no such thing as DDA or Kanpur milk supply, etc. So milkmen from the neighborhood village will come with milk in their buckets and try to give it to you and so on. So this professor asked, तो दूध दे जाओगे तो कितना रुपए लीटर होगा? So he said, साहब 5 रुपए लीटर होगा. तो he said, natural instinct तो कम नहीं हो सकता है. आप कहिएगा तो 4.5 हो जाएगा. तो he got no more excited. He said, और कम हो सकता है? 4 हो जाएगा. आप अगर कहें 3 रुपए हो सकता है, मतलब 3 रुपए हो तो जाएगा, फिर रंग की गारंटी नहीं है. रंग की गारंटी नहीं है. So he's saying, I will keep on adding water till this thing comes. So this is what is going to happen in education. If you won't allow education institutions to have money, then what? There is no guarantee of the color of what you are getting. Even today, I mean, I'm amazed with this COVID, etc., government, etc., and so on. They've been after school. No, you will not charge fee. You will not do this. You will not. If you won't charge fee, how will you get a service? I mean, even government doesn't do everything. Government for everything, whether you do or I do, charges a GST, right? So to expect ordinary people to run institutions without money is a complete foolish idea. And I am not saying it cannot happen, but it cannot meet the needs of 130 crore people who have to be educated to a modern level in a short time. See, if you take 5 years to educate them, all that has already become obsolete. So we have a large population to be educated in modern things in a very short time. To say that we can do this without money being spent or without the parents having to pay money, to me is completely sort of, stupid idea. It just cannot happen.
Indeed, sir. I can say there is a lot to learn from you. But today I don't want to take you much time. So moving to my last question of this session, or rather said, sir, what will be your advice to all the entrepreneurs, those who are watching this session?
Very good. So first advice is to all educators to become entrepreneurs. Because this is the great time. Let me say, suppose you know something. And there are people who want to know that. You got a position made. Now, we had to go to institutions because there was no way I could directly reach to my audience. So there were institutions who acted as the intermediary to create teachers and learners together. Now that is no longer necessary. That you can have through the internet, through various things and so on and so forth. And in fact, as you know, there are agencies which can do that. All these people, Zomato, etc., what are they doing? They're connecting people who make something to those who want it. And so there will be, through the internet, there can be many exchanges which will connect. Already, things like Udemy and so on and so forth are doing that. Now, if you're teaching something interesting, the whole world is your audience now. You are not limited to the 20 children registered in your school. And this is what is going to happen. Teachers will be, solo teachers will become celebrity teachers. And the reason is, this happened in the film industry. See, if you remember, long ago, there used to be theatre, which was well developed in Maharashtra, Bal Gandharva, and so on and so forth. When movies came, theatre actors moved to movies and became much more powerful, bigger celebrities and so on and so forth. When TV came, a whole new generation of TV actors came who were on television, who were not in Bombay film industry, etc. Now, some could do all of it. They could do theatre and TV and this thing, but otherwise people became specialists in a certain area. When you take a person called a doctor, all doctors don't do the same thing. They're specialists. They're pediatrician, there are this thing, there are geriatrician, there are various kind of things. Same thing will happen to education. Education will have specialists. Everybody is not just a teacher. Somebody can be very good in motivating you. So you will go to that person for motivation. Somebody may be very good in explaining things simply. He's an explainer. Somebody is up to date in knowledge. He will tell you the latest things that are happening. somebody will make it a project-based thing for you. So you will get various kinds of people, and because of the internet, people will come to know of it. Even otherwise, I don't know the details, but in our culture, in Sanskrit, there are different things that we use. We use adhyapak, we use acharya, we use guru, we use dhrishta, all kinds of words for different kind of teachers. Those who will tell you facts, those who will tell you experiments, those who will teach you to, like Dronacharya, they teach you skill, and then rishis who will actually talk about philosophies, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be a great thing for people who are larger investors. They can create such systems. So today, for example, I can give lots and lots of ideas, but I think I should charge for giving those ideas. But the point is that, take for example, AI Experience Center. We are all talking about AI. How will you experience AI? Now, people can create experience centers to which you can go, where there is an Alexa, there is something else also, and a teacher, and then from the cloud you can make something. There can be a quantum experience center, and so on. So what can happen is that, like we said about community, you could have centers like this in the community. There was a time when communities would have libraries for people, where people can go and read books and newspapers and so on. Today, it is an amazing thing to create a experience center, a chain. You remember not long ago, NIIT was something like this. NIIT was giving you exposure to computers because computers were around, but schools were not teaching about them. So similarly, the technologies, so I call them experience center for emerging technologies. So things which are happening, you are hearing about it, where do you experience it? Fortunately, most of them are available on the cloud. So all the person has to do is to have a good internet infrastructure and give connection to the cloud, to Amazon, to Google, to IBM, to this thing and so on, and have some guide to it, which is where again the learning community comes. It's not lecturing. It's a community. Somebody's an entrepreneur, somebody's studying engineering, somebody's in school, somebody's there. A community-based learning for experience. So very rapidly, the whole thing will move up. And today, it will be both a virtual part and a physical presence part. So there is, and you imagine, and the money that people will get is enormous, because everybody wants to do this. I mean, who here doesn't want to learn about AI? Who here doesn't want to learn about machine learning? The only problem is that we are hoping university will give a course to some 40 students and it will do an entrance test and whether I get into the. So that is the point. And I always say this, and let me say this as my final comment. How did this country learn to use the mobile phone? I tease my IAS friends. I said, see, you lost a big opportunity. You could have appointed one buddy as Director General of Mobile Phone Training, one Deputy Director General of iOS Training, one Deputy Director General of Android Training, and so on. No, we learned it by ourselves. You would have asked us to come to some building called Mobile Learning Niketan, and we would have gone there, given our Aadhaar card, PAN card, then you would have given us something, then say, go to class and learn this. We learned it by ourselves. You remember I said learning anywhere? This is the model of the future. The future model is learning anywhere, anytime, and within a community. So you're not looking for a certificate or cheating in an exam, you're looking for a community, and you don't want somebody to do that because you want to have that ability. And it is amazing. Country has shown this. This country has mobile. There's a literacy mission. I know the DG literacy mission was a good friend of mine. For decades, we have not been able to do literacy, but we have done mobile. And we have done today money transfer. When everybody around me, my Mali, my this, my that, they're all taking money through the phone. They're no longer taking cash. Who educated them? There was no certificate course from Department of Electronics to tell you how to handle money app and so on. And this is the model. So self-learning. So to me, the three elements are self-learning, AI, and quantum. And these three together is what will take our youth to the next level. Those who want to go. This is not compulsory. This is not mandatory. This is not forced upon you. But if you see that the future is about this, then these are the three things. And this is what my personal mission is. So I'm trying to tell people to become self-learners, using the self-learning to learn about AI, to learn about quantum, and any new things that come. So once you've begun to be a self-learner, anything new which comes, GPT 3.0, you will learn all about it. Otherwise you will wait. AICT कब होगा, कब वो सिलेबस में आएगा, फिर हमको एडमिशन मिलेगा, फिर को नहीं. It is amazing that the whole model. Take a simple example. Suppose you want to know about the internet. So you go to the formal set का engineering में जाओगे, अगर computer engineering में मिलेगा तो third year में TCP IP protocol होगा, then you will learn it. You don't want to learn it that way. So I have no hesitation that the old model of education is done with. It can continue to be there as करना चाहते हो कि हमारे यहाँ परंपरा चली आ रही है कि स्कूल कॉलेज यूनिवर्सिटी होता है, तो उसकी परंपरा की इज्जत करने के लिए आप कर लें. अगर आप अपने काम की बात सीखना चाहते हैं तो खुद से सीखना पड़ेगा. और एंटरप्रेन्योर्स का काम है खुद से सीखने की वो अपॉर्चुनिटीज बनाते जाना. Anyway, I hope you found some of this interesting.
Indeed, sir. It was a very wonderful advice from your side, and I must say the viewers, those who are watching this session, they are surely going to connect with it. And sir, it was a very healthy discussion with you, and the kind of energy you brought was very inspiring for you, for all of us. And thank you so much, sir, for joining and giving your important time.
So all the best. Hope you also become an entrepreneur doing some of these things.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And on the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside, I'm alone.